Welcome back to DSP Leaders World Forum. It's Tuesday, the 12th of May, and coming up now is our session on 5G as a driver for new business services. Before we start, a quick reminder that if you want to ask questions later or join the Extra Shot with Ray LaMaitre programs, then get in touch with us as soon as possible. Today, if you can. Details on TelecomTV along with our poll question. And so to our panel, 5G as a driver for new business services. With the first commercial 5G consumer services already launched, albeit with limited service, the stage is set for the cellular technology to open up new markets and revenues for service providers. So far, we've mostly seen 5G NR operating over LTE core networks, but the completion of the 5G core specifications and other enhancements should result in more capable 5G networks, which in turn will give DSPs the necessary capabilities to create a new class of service specifically for businesses and vertical industries. Well, that's the plan at least. Time to see what our guests think. And I'm delighted to introduce Neil McRae, who is Managing Director, Architecture and Technology Strategy and Chief Architect at BT. Folke, who is Head of Packet Core Solutions at Ericsson. And Soumen Chatterjee, who is Senior Director, Product Management and Solutions at Blue Planet, a division of Ciena. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining us on DSP Leaders.
Hi there, Guy.
We're still very early days for 5G. We're year one in what's likely to be a 10-year plus period that will see 5G continuously evolve. But from the outset, 5G was positioned as a key to unlocking the rather elusive business services market. I'd like to ask why. What is different about 5G? Neil, perhaps I can start with you.
Sure, Guy. So I think the key thing that's different about 5G are when we went from 3G to 4G, we kind of went from a kind of non-IP world to an IP world. And actually, a lot of the things that are in 5G, we did plan to do in 4G. We just kind of ran out of time. And what 5G really does is add scale and add the functionality we need to be assured of delivery. So, ensuring that things are low latency, ensuring things that do arrive, so quality of service. And it's those two key things, along with some new technology in radio for faster speeds and different frequencies, that really kind of underpins 5G. But in summary, we've added scalability and we've added assuredness, or what I call assuredness.
Thanks, Neil. Well, let's ask what our two vendors have to say about what makes 5G different. Folke, let's start with Ericsson's view.
Yeah, from a vendor perspective and Ericsson perspective, I would like to echo what said earlier here. Obviously, with 5G and NR, we get broader capabilities in the radio access in order to really create amazing peak rates, as well as increasing capacity over the interface, which has historically been, so to say, the limiting factor in the network. But what I find more exciting is really the new capabilities we add in on the core side of the network. With 3GPP release 15, we have had great progress in terms of creating network slices. We have capabilities to expose information from the mobile network to, for instance, enterprises and create this kind of verticals. So I really see the 5G core standalone as an innovation platform where we can go well beyond what we see today when we're mostly focusing consumer mobile broadband.
And Soumen, I know Blue Planet's doing a lot of work at the moment on network slicing. What's your view of what makes 5G different?
Absolutely. So let me go back to the fundamental and what Neil was saying. If you look at 5G, there are four key areas we believe 5G provides significant value. The first one is latency. The second one is the peak bandwidth. The third one is reliability. And the fourth one is primarily around how many devices you can connect. So if you think about, you have these four different levers that you can tailor for certain business applications or business needs. And that's where the network slicing, the value of network slicing comes in. If you look at the network today, it's almost like one size fits all. But if you look at 5G, you can tailor your network for certain business application, and that allows the network service providers to monetize 5G in a many different way. So that's the key to me for 5G.
Anyone want to pick up on the point there about tailoring the network? This is one of the big differences.
Yes, I would say so. If you look at, for instance, some networks built today, you see quite often dedicated networks for a certain use case. May it be, for instance, serving utilities. Now with the capabilities to really make a dedicated slice for a certain enterprise, that brings so much more flexibility instead of having to deploy, in the case, a dedicated network for just one use case.
When we talk, just focus on network slicing for a moment, because we're all talking about it now. Is it not it makes more sense, rather than to create generic vertical slices, a limited number, that it makes more sense to create a multitude of slices that are more closely aligned with individual companies? Is it right to look at verticals with 5G, or is that too broad? Neil?
Yeah, I mean, vertical's one way of looking at it. I don't think it's a helpful way. In my mind, it's about finding the network characteristics that a use case needs and aligning the slices to that. But I think, it's very early days, probably, the golden quote of too early to tell what the right model is. But I think, the kryptonite, if you like, of telcos is complexity. So the minute that we make network slicing too complex, it'll be very challenging. And if I kind of refer to the fixed network, we spent a lot of time building MPLS and traffic engineering and tons of capability to kind of create this slicing-like capability on the fixed network. And ultimately, it became so complicated that actually we didn't really end up using a lot of the capability. And further to that, the needs of the consumer, the base user of the network, became so demanding that they actually out-demanded, the most demanding application. If I think of finance applications, which was one of the big drivers for a lot of quality of service in the network. Actually, I find video gamers demand more low latency and more greater delivery than anything that the finance community ever did. So I'm a slight skeptic on network slicing in the form of having hundreds or thousands of slices. There are clearly use cases that make sense. One example would be emergency service networks. So we run the emergency service network in the UK. And that's clearly a use case that makes sense for network slicing. But do I think that, Jeff the baker will have a network slice? Probably not.
Got any comments from Folke or Soumen here about when we refer to these slices as we talk about the new business markets? Are we making things overly complex for ourselves and for the CSPs?
Well, so let me jump in. So you're absolutely right. So 5G network is going to be complex, and how you can make it simple. So automation cannot be an afterthought. You have to automate from the ground up. And if you look at 5G network, the way it is being built, or the way it needs to be built, automation has to be at the center of it. So that's the first thing. And the second thing I wanted to highlight is what Neil just said, that I don't think even that there will be thousands of network slices. If you look at the three slices that the industry has defined, which are EMBB and URLCC, enhanced mobile broadband, and then ultra reliable low latency network. And if you look at the third one, which is MMTC, which is a massive mobile to mobile machine to machine communication slide. And if you look at all the different needs, you can fit into those three different slices. However, I also believe that there will be specific needs for certain verticals. For example, manufacturing. Manufacturing needs ultra reliable and low latency communication, because if you look at today, manufacturing has pretty much wired connections on the floor, and oftentimes they have to reconfigure the manufacturing process, and that creates complexity in terms of their how the network is being built. So I believe for certain verticals, you definitely need certain slices that need to be tailored for those specific use case. Another use case would be I was talking to one of our prospective customers who are looking at how they can provide networks, well, I guess not network security around airport using drones. How they can provide and how they can transmit all those high definition images from drones, and that needs to be quickly processed. And in some cases, they have to take actions. So in those cases, I believe the network needs to be tailored for those specific use cases. But a broad range of use cases, you can just use those generic slices that the industry is talking about.
And Folke, you wanted to come in and add to that as well.
Yes, if I add, I fully agree as well. Like, we need to find ways to really make it easy to maintain these slices using orchestration and automation throughout the network, from the device through the radio and the core. That, I believe, is a prerequisite in order for slicing to take off. Then how many slices do you need? I have a similar view there, that for most use cases, actually a good mobile broadband network will do it for the small enterprise. But then you have more demanding kind of use cases, moving into smart manufacturing, critical kind of IoT, where I believe it really makes sense to put up a slice, and probably will be for these enterprises a prerequisite to have a fulfillment of very tough service level agreements. Well, that's where the slice really fits.
Neil, how crucial is it that we have the new 5G core at the center of our service offerings, underpinning everything moving forward?
I mean, I think it's crucial from a long-term viability point of view in terms of how we operate and run the network. But, many of the use cases we talk about, to some extent, they're actually deployed on 4G and 5G non-standalone. However, they're hard to scale. They tend to be bespoke. The tooling around them tends to be quite manual. The 5G network, as mentioned earlier, it really gives us a much greater depth of controllability, a much greater depth of telemetry coming from the network that allows us to signal and change things and leverage other technologies like artificial intelligence. And really, the 5G standalone core is really built for automation. And I think, automation is probably as important as some of the, in fact, probably more important than some of the other capabilities that we're putting into the network. So yes, you will hear many people say, well, we've done that in 4G or we've done it in non-standalone, but you tell them, well, I want to buy 50 of them. And they're like, well, that's a bit more difficult. We can't really scale it. We can't do all the things that we would like to do. So, moving towards that standalone full fat, if you like, 5G core is really an important step for us all.
Folke, I'm sure you're going to come in and echo what Neil just said about automation and the importance of automation in the provisioning of these services.
Yes, no, that's extremely important, and take it all the way. If you start with, for instance, how we can really add devices in the smoothest way using eSIM technology, having means where we, given the scarce resource air interface, how we can in an intelligent way allocate spectrum to be automatically adjusted basically to the kind of device penetration there. We have, from Ericsson perspective, put a lot of R&D into doing what we call dynamic spectrum sharing, which is a way to, on millisecond basis, allocate spectrum. May it be a high penetration of 5G core standalone devices in the future, whereas maybe today, of course, there will be a majority of LTE devices. That's one example. Moving up to the core network, having cloud native network functions brings new automation capabilities. In the case of Ericsson, we are using some 150, 200 microservices to put together the different cloud network functions. BT will be one of our first customers deploying this. And I believe here we see great progress in terms of making it much smoother to do smaller software upgrades of the network, having more kind of automatic scaling, and also by using the 3GPP capabilities in the network repository function, the NRF, for instance, to detect what kind of network functions do you have there and how can you, by using that, then create a slice. So I would say this is, from a core perspective, the step to move from, let's say, a Evolved Packet Core to a 5G Evolved Packet Core was kind of limited. But moving to a 5G core standalone with the service-based architecture, having cloud network functions, I mean, that's a big technology step that I really believe that service providers can benefit from.
We're going to be covering cloud native in other sessions during DSP Leaders Week, and it's something we have been covering in depth for over a year now. I'd like to ask our other guests, the importance of this, basically implementing cloud native methodologies and a mindset into the implementation of 5G technology and then ultimately services. Are these two linked? Do we need to take a cloud native approach as we evolve our networks for 5G?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. I think we talk about scale as one of the key demands on the network. And if you think about IoT, and yeah, we've been doing IoT for since the 2G days in some respects, but if you think about IoT, the notion of having billions of sensors all over the planet, in fact, actually you could have billions of sensors just in your local town or city that you live in, and being able to grow and scale and fix and add functionality really means you need a kind of on-demand pipeline of feature functionality, of coding, of being able to leverage a DevOps model to really stand up and fix problems as you come along. You see the hyperscalers be able to effectively run 24/7 and very rarely have any interruption to service. And that's a model that works extremely well for them. Well, we need to build on that model. And as mentioned earlier, we're working with Ericsson on that cloud native core network. I think all operators are going to be moving to that model over the next few years. And it's a challenging migration. It's a challenging move. And it's something that, in BT, we kind of skipped the whole kind of VM-based virtualization because we just saw too many bottlenecks for it. And where we've been wanting to get to is to go straight to a cloud native architecture. And it's meant things have taken longer for us a little bit, but actually we're starting to really see the benefits of that. And BT TV and BT Sport, they run entirely in a cloud native environment, and the things that we're able to do with it, fire up a new mode for our application to do high definition or 3D just by kind of clicking our fingers and not having to have planned works or huge development cycles, just means that if we really want to land the on-demand applications of today, then that cloud native way of thinking is crucial.
Soumen, do you want to add to what Neil said about the cloud native effect?
Absolutely. I think what Neil just said, scalability and how you really can scale up and scale down the network dynamically. If you look at the two things are important. The first one is, of course, disaggregation, and then the cloud native architecture where you can spin up and spin down whenever you need and wherever you need those applications, be it RAN, the access network, or be it the core network. And how you can automate and orchestrate that on-demand functions as you need more capacity. That is definitely fundamental to the 5G network. 5G network, as we talk about always, that it provides scale. And the way you can provide scale is by dynamically spinning up and spinning down. And you have to get into that operational mode to provide capacity when you need and spin down capacity when you don't need. As you know, that you just can't pre-provision everything in the beginning. As you scale, as you see more demand, just like any cloud service providers like Amazon or Google or any Microsoft, how they operate the network, it has to be operated the same way.
We've been talking about 5G as a driver, the technology capabilities, but do we as an industry really understand the needs and the new needs, the evolving needs of businesses and enterprise customers? Do the service providers, can they go alone on this? Do they need to collaborate with other partners, perhaps? Neil, I'm curious on your views on this.
Yeah, I mean, I think the answer is we know a little bit about it, but not enough. And actually, in my technical strategy for BT, one of the things that's at the top of the list is how do we find a new way of collaborating with customers that's much more embedded than it has been in the past. I think it's a critical challenge for us. And as telecommunication companies, I'd like for everyone to start thinking of us as technology companies where, we don't have a technology department, but everybody in the company is kind of empowered to help customers get the most out of technology. And absolutely, there is nobody who can do this on their own, not a single company in the world. So being able to collaborate in a multi organizational mode, it could be us as the operator, working with Ericsson, working with Ciena, who are two of our fantastic partners at BT, together with a customer who's trying to build a supply chain, an automated supply chain. We don't know what equipment a supply chain needs to be automated. We don't know where it is or how it works. The customer knows that, but we do know technology, and we do know orchestration, and we do know mobile and fixed networks, and coming together. If we really want to unlock the power of the network, collaboration is crucial. And I'm going to use a kind of Star Trek reference here. Apologies for that. There'll be a whole bunch of groans in the audience as I say this. But if you just think about the way that you press a button and something happens, the way that has to work is that integration of many different types of skills and knowledge, and how we collaborate is going to be crucially important. And I'll give an example of that right now. So, we're fortunate enough that we can continue this discussion via video over the network, even though there's this global crisis happening. We've been piloting with some of our customers what we call virtual product development, leveraging the 5G network, leveraging computing edge at the edge of the network, leveraging some really high-powered graphics processing capabilities to allow customers to continue to develop products where they would normally have been creating models or prototypes. We're able to help them create a virtual prototype, and then locally, press a button and actually have a 3D printer create that prototype, leveraging all the capability of the power of 5G and network edge. And the only way we could figure that out is to work really closely with the customer. And it's much harder, I think, right now, than it is if you can all get in the room with, whiteboards and some thoughts about how each other's requirements come about. And what I've found that through my entire life, in fact, I'm here today because most of all of the great things that I've come up with has not been my idea, but been an idea of one of my customers. So I want to get as close to customers and closer to customers as I possibly can, because that's where the richness is in learning from them and turning that into capability that helps them use the network even more.
Thanks, Neil. Folke, in the same way as Neil was talking about getting close to his customers, you've got to get close to your customers, the service providers. Is there also a need for you to get close to the ultimate customers, the enterprises and businesses, and sort of square the circle, if you like, and collaborate more and just help the service providers more?
I mean, yes, definitely. We need to go beyond our service provider customers in order to understand how they can address, let's say, the business segment better. So we have a number of collaborations working for instance, with mining companies, manufacturing companies, automation companies, in order to understand what is the kind of requirements that they see on a mobile network. So that's extremely important for us. One example where we've done close collaboration is with Mercedes in one of their manufacturing plants in Germany. We have worked closely with mining companies here in Sweden to understand what are their requirements in terms of reliability, safety, security. So yes, definitely. Then our go-to-market model from Ericsson perspective is through the service providers. We don't sell directly to these kind of enterprise customers. But it's great to understand what they need, and also from going back to how important it is to be able to easily manage a mobile network. We have very competent service providers. They have worked with 2G, 3G, 4G, and now 5G. But going into, let's say, an enterprise, they know IT very well, they know Wi-Fi, and we need to make sure that it's very easy to put up a small mobile network on their, so to say, campus area without having extensive 3GPP knowledge. So that can sometimes be a bit of a challenge where we talk different languages.
Soumen, how important is it that you understand these verticals, these industry sectors, in order to provide the solutions that the service providers need?
Well, it's absolutely critical, and I agree with all my fellow panelists that it's important to understand the end user's needs, because once you understand the end user's need, we can actually help our customers. Our customers are service providers. And in the end of the day, the products and the services that we create, that has to meet the end user's needs. And I believe that co-creation and the collaboration is absolutely critical. And if you look at the 5G, there are many facets. There are many facets around how the ecosystem is being developed. For example, I'll give you an example around all the low latency applications that we're talking about. One big facet to that is, how you can have this multi-access edge at closer to users, so that they can move around workload. For example, if I'm in a gaming company providing gaming applications, how can I place my workload closer to the user so they can get the maximum user experience, or the highest level user experience? So those are the things we still need to understand. And from our perspective, when we are providing the automation across end-to-end network, it's absolutely critical how those workloads are being moved around and how those workloads are being shifted and placed at the right place for providing maximum user benefits. So all in all, it's absolutely important for us. We are working with both the end customers as well as our customers, which is service provider, who are providing those services.
A question I'd like to put to all of you. So long as we keep the complexity of 5G and features such as network slicing down to as minimum as we can, we keep the partnerships and collaborations up, we keep the understanding up, we're on good ground. But I guess one of the big fears is that a lot of these enterprises will say, we've got an alternative way of doing it. We can do it ourselves. We can put our own network in. We'll go private. We don't need you. How do you counter that? Neil, what's your thoughts of countering that?
Yeah, I mean, listen, there's always going to be those that want to do things themselves, and I think actually it's quite helpful, because more often than not, when they go down that path, in my experience, they usually end up calling us, because it's harder than it looks, and having the right knowledge around how to optimize a network, how to scale a network, is really important. But I kind of step back from that, and I'm sure my colleagues here would agree with me. So yes, we're BT and we do connectivity, but we have a massive amount of knowledge on many other areas. We run one of the largest IT infrastructures in the UK and probably in the world, or in terms of an enterprise. We do supply chain. We build and manufacture products of our own. We run a lot of, we have one of the biggest building and property portfolios in the UK, and one of the largest users of power in the UK. So there's a lot of knowledge we have as an enterprise that we can bring to the table working with other enterprises who want to, who perhaps think all we are is the connectivity player. Sure, that's our core business, but we offer so much more than that. And we've got into other areas such as distribution and content where we've learned a lot of challenges, and we've made some mistakes and learned from them. And I think if all you look at BT as is the connectivity partner, then you've probably really missed the value that we bring, which is probably down to us, in fact, and we should do a better job of selling what we can do. But we also bring security. We know AI. We know about scaling things to production and running them. Running a CI/CD, continuous integration, continuous deployment pipeline. We know how to respond to the needs of millions of customers if they've got a problem and they want to phone you. So I like to think of us as much more of a portfolio of capability rather than a one-trick pony where we're seen as just a connectivity player. And frankly, actually, where we are seen as just a connectivity player, it probably isn't that interesting for us, because what we absolutely have in our strategy and our needs is to be much more than just a connectivity player. And if I think about my colleagues around the table, I think they're very much in the same place. Is that we need to do more than just what our core business is, and expand into enabling customers to do more via platforms and platform capabilities, as well as sharing the things that have worked and sharing the things that haven't worked so well.
Which addresses the heart of this event, which is the evolution towards digital services provision. Our two vendors, Folke first, is the threat of say private networks and enterprises doing it themselves, is it being overstated?
You have, in some countries, for instance, dedicated spectrum that's sold directly to enterprises. In Germany is one example there. And then the enterprise has a choice. Either they can go and build on their own a small mobile network, or they work with one of the service providers, in this case in Germany. So I don't see it as a big risk. The big risk as an industry is if we don't take the opportunity then to go beyond what we're doing today, serving the consumer segment with mobile broadband and voice. I view it like now we have a very capable 5G core platform where we can have great capabilities in order to address the enterprise segment. I believe it will be sad for a vendor like Ericsson or a CSP like BT if we don't go. For instance, targeting enterprise, see how we can help enterprises become more successful, may it be in logistics or in manufacturing and so on. So I think it's up to us in the industry to prove ourselves. And if we do it in a good way, I'm sure we can be very successful.
So, Soumen, the time is right now. We need to strike. It doesn't matter if enterprises might be considering the CSP route or alternative, so long as our industry solution, we're convinced it's the right solution. We stand a good chance of progressing and benefiting.
Yeah. So I think I agree that some large enterprises, they're acquiring their own spectrum. But if you look at that's not their core competency. They want to focus on their own product and own services and what they're doing, and then they want to let the service providers or communication service provider or mobile network operators to manage their network. If you look at the same thing is even playing out when their IT service is actually moving to a cloud like Google Cloud or Amazon or Azure, because the enterprises want to focus on their core services or their core offerings, if you will. Now, said that, of course, there are many enterprises, they want to move fast. And I think this is an opportunity for a service provider to go aggressively go after those markets. Now, acquiring those spectrum doesn't mean that they want to manage everything on their own. They can always go and take help from service providers. And that's an opportunity for the mobile network operators to go and help the enterprises. Now, I think I agree with my fellow panelists where enterprises' needs differ. It's not just one size fits all, and I think it's an opportunity again for as a vendor community as well as the service provider community, our customers, to go and look at those needs and design a network accordingly from end to end. So that's what I would say.
Final brief question to all of you before we wrap the session. Are we convinced that there's untapped revenue from the enterprises that 5G can enable? Simon, I'll start with you, and we'll go down Simon, Folke, and then finish with Neil.
Oh, absolutely. I think if you look at the network, again, I go back to the basics. If you look at the network that we can build with 5G, you can tailor the network for many different applications. And if you look at enterprises today, and I'll give you an example from my conversation with gaming industry, or even, as I said, in the airport security industry, where they're looking for a network where they can help, where a 5G network can help. And I believe that there's definitely an untapped opportunity. And if we can harness the value of 5G, there's definitely a lot of opportunity to monetize those enterprise use cases in many different ways that was not possible today with the current network.
Thank you. And Folke?
Yes, absolutely. We have something very powerful in our industry with 5G, and in particular with standalone. So I'm convinced that we can help enterprises become more productive using our wireless technology, have the capabilities doing slicing for them. So yes, I'm confident.
Great. And final word to Neil.
Yeah, I have no doubt. I think we've scratched the surface of what opportunity there is for our customers. But I think the mode that we work with the customer and how we help the customer do what he wants to do and give him ideas is also something that we kind of need to think about. So, the kind of model I want is knowing that when my customer is doing well, I'm doing well, or if I'm doing well, my customer's doing well. So again, I think much more linking of the overall value chain when we work with our customers as well. And I think we've got a lot to learn about how to do that, but I think there's so much potential out there. We've got to figure out how to do that, and there's no technological barrier. There's just a human barrier, and I think we've got to figure out how we work together and overcome that to really deliver the value that the network and technology can bring.
Great. Well, look, a huge thank you to all three of you for joining us on the program today. It is very much appreciated. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Now, if you have any questions for our guests or any additional comments or views you wish to add, then please do get in touch with us. And if you want to be part of the ongoing conversation, then you need to join us on our brand new discussion program, Extra Shot, with TelecomTV's editorial director, Ray Lemaitre. Get in touch with us now through social media or email, but you do need to act fast. Otherwise, please take a look at the sessions that we've already held. They're all available for on-demand viewing now right here on TelecomTV. And we'll be adding future sessions to the archive as the week goes on. Coming up next is our session on the evolution of customer services. And you'll be able to watch that later today from 4 p.m. UK time. But for now, a final thank you to our panelists and to you for watching. Goodbye.